speeding. And we are back.
Hey guys.
Hey everybody. Wow, what a crazy week in terms of pop culture. Look at my phone, you're away. You don't have your SIM card because your phone is broken. And what do we see?
Oh yeah, so I accidentally broke my phone. I don't know how to fix it.
We will
it's
have
in
to
SOS mode. Save our souls.
Save our souls. Is that what does that mean?
Save our souls.
That's what that means?
I think so.
SOS. Wow, that's crazy. I never thought about it.
Yeah.
I've heard people say SOS.
Save our souls.
Oh,
is it like an exclamation like save my soul before I die? It's like an emergency. Like
yeah.
SOS is like
it's like as
save my
big
soul.
as wow.
Like it's
not
not
even
just
my life.
Save my life, save my body, save my being,
It's
save
like
my
your
soul.
Post.
Like you're already
Post-mortem.
clinging on. You're clinging on to your life.
Maybe even gone. Because I was reading about it in your case. It's like you can only make emergency phone calls and that's it.
So how do I even make... See, I was like walking today.
I was worried because you were gone
Griffith
for
Hills,
so long.
And I was like, if I needed my phone, like I would not be able to call anyone.
Yeah,
I would just have to run and
worried.
scream.
Yeah.
But then I thought about the time that I was chased.
Yeah.
And I was like, no one was answering my phone calls. And Aaron didn't come to get me when that happened. And I just ran and screamed and I did pretty well.
Yeah.
So it made me feel a little bit more secure.
That's good.
Now, would I have appreciated if you ran and come and got me?
I was trying to get to you.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure if it was a prank.
I saw Aaron when I was running from my attacker. And I came to the foot of the stairs and Aaron was standing at the top taking his sweet time. I was sitting at the foot of the stairs out of breath for probably at least 30 seconds. And was he walking down the stairs even?
Yes.
No, he wasn't until he saw me.
I was walking down. I just thought I need to get backup, so I was going to go get more people.
I think if I had to be emotionally protected, I could rely on you.
But physically, no.
No.
I think that that's not a bad call because I'm just kind of tiny sometimes.
It's not the tininess that bothers me. It's the immediacy of the action. Like, I need you to just jump in there when I'm being chased by someone.
Fair. That's valid.
And about to be kidnapped.
That's fair.
But, maybe I just needed to believe that I was capable of escaping on my own.
And you did.
I did.
You broke free.
The reason I've been thinking about that, I think, is because we drove down Melrose.
Yeah, we did.
And it really triggered me. I didn't want to say anything.
I was thinking about that too. I just didn't want to bring it up in the car while other
Well, you
people
were like,
there.
this is where we had our showcase.
And then I connected.
But I immediately knew, like 5 minutes before you said that this is where we had the showcase. And I hate going to Melrose. I can't go there now.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about it, which is so stupid. It's like,
it's not
at
stupid.
this point, I should be over it. But
Melrose is pretty grimy.
It just like
it's pretty well known.
I saw an
grimy.
article today that was like Melrose is one of the cutest places in LA because the shops are all next to each other like in New York. I was like, there is nothing about Melrose that reminds me of New York.
There's a freaking highway separating each. Who wrote that? Fucking LA Insider. Who did that?
I don't know. I was like, this is nothing like New York.
What?
Like, I'd say Melrose feels to me like the most like.
It's the most like California like strip.
It's not even California though.
It's
like very like it's very LA. I don't know. What is the stereotypical thing you think of when you think of LA?
LA, I just think of like, neighborhoods made
I guess
up
some
of like
people
little
outside
strips.
of California. I think people outside of California think of LA as like, I don't know. Santa Monica or Venice.
Yeah. Or like you think of Beverly, you think of like Rodeo Drive and like the Grove or something. If you think about the epitome of like shopping.
You think of that. But then when I think like someone from San Francisco thinks about LA because I feel like there's kind of a rivalry there.
For sure.
I think we think of Melrose.
Right. In terms of image.
Like image of what I would imagine LA to be. Like when I first came to LA, you think of like when I first came to LA, I was like, so where are the people?
You think what is happening?
Because, I remember, walking around Melrose and there were there was a beautiful neighborhood around there, but then like, there's just no one in sight.
Yeah, it's like, And I'm sorry, like crossing the street is like on the other side of the universe.
Yeah.
It's spread out by a freaking planet. That's how far it is. And it's like,
And Melrose is like the west side of LA, you would say.
yeah. And then you had like where we were yesterday was like, oh, we really need to use a bath. Sophia really needs to use
I had to go to the
freaking
bathroom so badly, and we dropped off our friend to work at Trader Joe's, and it was in Beverly Hills. So we normally don't go to the west side at all. Like
No.
we'll normally just stay on the east side.
Yeah.
And
East side.
And we went over there, and
we pull over because Sophia really had to pee, and I'm not gonna lie, I had to as well. We broke out the Trader Joe's pretzel snacks. It's delicious.
I can't eat those anymore because I'm apparently supposed to be gluten free.
You had
but
some
I have
lentil
not
snacks,
stopped
so-
dreaming about bread for the past 3 days. So we'll see how.
I'm thinking about some bread too.
I've been thinking about bread and red vines, and I'm
Mm.
just really craving like sugar and bread.
Some deliciousness. When I put the peanut butter cups in the cart, you gave me the dirtiest look I've
Because
ever
you
seen.
never get peanut butter cups.
But
The
I like them
only
now.
time
I'm
that-
really into
The
them
only
now.
time you get sweets is like when I can't eat them.
Well, I'm really into
I don't think
them.
I've ever seen you eat chocolate in my life.
Well, come on now. It's not true. You've seen it.
I've seen it, but I've seen it like when I like bring over the chocolate and I'm like, okay, do you want a piece so that I feel better about eating the whole box?
Right. That's fair.
But then like,
Okay, so we pull over and we get out of the car again. Like it'll be like a strip of different stores and stuff, and confined in what I'll call a neighborhood. Although let's be real, across the street, which took like 10 minutes to walk from one sidewalk to the other, and we go to a coffee shop. One coffee shop is like, there's a coffee sign. I'm like, okay, let's go there. It's a fucking like upscale bar. We look inside and they're like men in suits conducting like some kind of predatory business.
Don't have coffee in your name if you're gonna be a club.
If you're like a cocktail bar, there was like a VIP lane that I'm sure they put out, and I'm like, what is your and they have coffee in their name. That place burns to the ground.
I've just been feeling really like grimy Hollywood lately.
And
We'll touch.
And then we go into this place. It's like, oh, okay. There's like, I see a sign. It says now serving La Colombe coffee. So I'm like, okay, coffee. We're gonna pop in.
And like, look, I don't drink coffee. I don't like it.
We need to use the bathroom.
But I was like, I will literally take an espresso shot if I can pee, and that's what I did.
I mean,
did I need to do that? No.
If I need to use the bathroom, I will sell you my house for $20.
Right, the
like,
house that we own. Right.
But I'm just saying, like, there's nothing that'll get in the way of me in the bathroom.
I know that.
I've gone poo in a trash can before.
For real, Aaron?
Yes.
Why the fuck did you go poo in a trash?
I had to go really badly.
When was this?
So
was
we
this
get
while
into
we were dating?
So we get into this store and this coffee shop, and we get in, and this woman asks to scan our IDs, and I look around, and it's clearly a dispensary. And I'm like, oh fuck, this is a dispensary.
I can never. Well, okay, the dispensary in our neighborhood I can tell because it has a huge like weed leaf on it.
No, I mean it has dispensary in the name.
But I can never really like tell if a place is a dispensary at
They
first.
seem
like
hidden.
they kind of look like furniture stores.
Yes.
Right?
Some do, yeah.
Like
or
an
Apple
Apple
stores.
store.
Yeah.
Or that one looked like a furniture store.
Yeah. But they had a coffee shop. It says, we're scanning our IDs.
And
I'm like,
really nice bathrooms though. They really did.
well, so I'm like, oh no, never mind. Like, we thought there was coffee. She's like, oh no, there is coffee. So we had to scan our IDs. It was like Woody Harrelson's dispensary. Then we go in the back. It's like a weed house. It's like a weed clubhouse. Everyone was very high.
Yeah.
So we went pee. I had their coffee. The coffee's actually pretty good. Good job, Woody. And then we went home.
An espresso
But
shot.
that was the epitome of what I feel like LA is, where it's like this little storefront is like, you know, it's like you step in and then they're like, oh, and then now it's like a whole like thing.
We're like a jungle weed bar, but
That's also a
coffee
space
shop,
station.
but also you can like read your book in the library.
Yeah, and there's a zoo in the back, and we have lions. It's like, what? And that's all. You only find that in Los Angeles, and I guess if you're into that sort of thing, that's great. I hope you're happy.
When
we
I was
probably
a kid, I
won't
really
be friends.
wanted that. Like, I think maybe I would have liked LA more as a child.
Yeah, but then it's like,
because I was really like, you know, when I have my own bedroom, which it took me a really long time for me and my brother and sister to stop sharing a room.
right.
I was like, I'm going to actually make it a jungle and have like tall flowers and trees. Like,
Yeah, it's
but it'd
like
also be a bedroom and a library and a study and, and a tea room.
it's yeah. I feel very similar. It's just like that person though still has that ideology of what they think would be like a fun space and is like probably 30 years old.
Which scares me.
Which scares me. It gives very like Nickelodeon.
Well, that guy in the documentary,
Yeah, which one?
the one, was it Brian Peck?
Brian Peck, yeah. Speaking of,
Yeah, we watched
we went
Quiet
through
on
a
Set.
binge
Quiet on
yesterday.
Set. I literally cannot breathe right now thinking about it. Like, it's kind of giving me anxiety in a really
I get why,
deep
dude.
way. I haven't. So we started the first episode yesterday, and everyone is telling us to watch this documentary, right? I listened to this podcast. I'm gonna give it a shout out called Beyond the Blinds. And if you're really curious about pop culture, they basically read blind items, but they also they have done a lot of episodes, especially on
Schneider?
well, I'd say pedophilia in the industry,
Yeah.
where they're just reading court documents.
Right.
They're not even reading blinds.
I see.
And it's just like kind of insane.
I mean, it's like the old time. I mean, everybody knows that there's some sort of pervasive sexual predation that goes on in Hollywood. Like, no one doesn't know that. I remember being like 8 in the car in like Hawaii and me being like, oh, I want to try for like theater, like if there's any local television stuff going on. My dad was like, no, absolutely not. Like they would never let me do that.
That makes sense.
And I just feel like there's always like it's common knowledge that that's something that goes on. It's just not talked about in fine detail.
Well, it must be common knowledge because it also seems like in a lot of ways like these parents were just like
pimping out their kids.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, and
it made me think. Like I was thinking about it when I was listening to more episodes of Beyond the Blinds, because they do a deep dive of all of this stuff. I was like, are these parents having children, and before they have them, are they planning to put them in the industry and use them for money? Because I cannot imagine.
I mean, it must be crazy to like know you are going. If there is a hell, you have to be going there. If you're one of those parents.
Or like,
do you know what I mean?
I don't know. It makes me sick thinking about it, and then I also think about like.
Because the idea that like in the Drake Bell sense that his father obviously knew something was going on. He just couldn't prove it.
And his father said, so in the documentary, his parents are divorced, and Drake was originally spending all of his time with his father, who was really onto Brian Peck. And there were like videos, which I was kind of like shocked that they showed it on like a TV program like that, of him like touching Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
That was insane to me.
Right.
They were like next to each other on set, and this is in front of like all these people. So
right.
You're imagining, and as the father said in the documentary, you're imagining that if someone is touching your child in this flirtatious way in front of people openly on set.
There is literally a story of Kevin Spacey in a meeting with an executive at NBC. It's the executive Kevin Spacey. Sitting next to Kevin Spacey is the executive's son. Kevin Spacey is groping his son under the table, and just the meeting is continuing. That is like that happened. Mm-hmm. It's just like such a weird mind fuck that I cannot wrap my head around. And like when you think about the entertainment industry and how insulated it is and how closed off. I mean, there are literally like gates, security, like armed gates. Only a select people can go in. You have to be invited. And like I'm sorry, is there there's no entry level to any of this? Even like, let's take like talent agencies, which are another sector of what I view this like abusive industry to kind of be. Like agencies are no exception. They obviously aid. I mean, even what they were saying about Dan and like with the mother, they were like, oh, this is like how it goes. Don't worry about it. It's like, yeah, they're all complicit in all this bullshit. They know. They've heard about all those things and they probably take part in that. But I was looking at I was like curious. I was like, oh, I wonder what like a starting salary is for, an assistant at like William Morris or like at one of these
Mhm.
top agencies, and they get paid like $15.50 an hour for what are like thousands of applicants. Like it's harder to get into one of these mailrooms in Harvard in terms of like acceptance.
Yeah, I think that's what really. I mean, we all know that you were thinking like, Sophia, why are you comparing your? Remember when we started watching the documentary?
Oh yeah. So we're watching the documentary, and then they're going through his history,
I'm a bit embarrassed about this.
and it's like Dan, I guess, like booked like a silly comedy show or something, and he was a regular or something.
And then he was asked to create a show on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, like how did
Like
that happen?
I'm sorry, the jumps of people's careers, I think,
So
also are just
strange.
not making any sense to me.
I wish they went into that a little bit more about
But
how
I don't.
he.
I wonder if like. I don't know. I think after just like listening to all these podcasts as well, which are talking about like basically like this podcast that I listened to, it talked about Brian Peck. It talked about I'm actually gonna look at the name. But it was this famous photographer that took photos of all these child actors in the 90s, and he was arrested for pedophilia.
Oh.
And he took photos of like so many stars: Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Cruise.
Takes photos of children.
Yes.
I mean, I heard a story of.
It was oh my god, I didn't write his name
Well,
down.
a lot of these like photographers will have NDA agreements on their shoots, where people, if you take photos with them, you have to sign an NDA agreement prior to your shoot. So you cannot discuss them, you cannot discuss their shoot, you cannot discuss what happens during their shoot. It's like a legally binding contract, which is insane. You know? I don't know how it applies to like kids and stuff, but what I was saying before about, you know, these people in mailrooms getting paid like $15 an hour to be insanely overworked, probably like 40 plus hours a week. You know, I don't know a ton of people who have sort of assistant jobs, but from the people I do, you're working over 50-hour weeks for very little pay, for essentially like, you know, if you work at a Wendy's, you're making just as much money. And the level of stress, anxiety, and like intentional pain is just like, it's taken to new heights. And if you think about it, it's like, well, who gets those jobs? Well, the people who get those jobs are, you know, the people who can.
I found the name.
Oh, what's the name?
Bob Villard.
Bob Villard.
Bob Villard, I think is
Bob
his name.
Villard.
But if you look at all of the photos that he's also taking, and I will say the same for the Nickelodeon documentary. Okay, a lot of the photos that he took were very suggestive if you had the mind to think that. Like if you look
Right.
at the photos, you're like, oh, these are just photos of kids. Normally someone would think that if you saw
Yeah.
these photos. But the style was very like, he would be like on like taking the photos from an angle where he was above the children. They would be like in like, you know, cropped tanks and like laying on a couch in a suggestive way where
Right.
you wouldn't think that if you were just a normal person.
Yeah, but if you're.
But then he was like selling these images online to other pedophiles. And anyway, like the episode that I listened to just talked about how the different like pedophiles working in the industry would do different things so that there wasn't competition between them, but they were basically like grooming these children and then passing them on to each other to be like, okay, I took your photos and then now you're going to go to this guy to get coaching, or you're going to, you know, live with this guy because he's going to be your manager.
Yeah, why is like this thing with like like people would live with like Michael Jackson, like
No, it's
Usher,
a very
and, like,
common thing.
it's like it's this
like Usher lived
expected
with Diddy,
thing
I think.
that like children will then live with these stars and essentially be like emancipated from their own parents.
And yeah,
How
it's
could that
very
even
odd.
happen and be accepted, or like, you know?
But this is like, I will say, that does feel like a common thing.
I mean, it seems to happen pretty
all
often.
the time. I think with every like major star, they've probably lived with a manager.
That's so remarkably inappropriate that you could. It's
Yeah,
so
but
crazy.
anyway,
to me.
what I was saying about the way that these people rise to power, like, I don't know, watching the documentary as well and seeing that when Drake Bell was talking about how on Brian Peck's side during the court case, it was full of people, and all of the stars and celebrities and, you know, people, producers that
Right.
wrote in talking about how good of a man he was,
Right.
and how he was definitely, you know, forced into
Or he was
molesting a
tempted. He
child,
was
basically.
tempted, yeah.
And then he was rehired immediately after he got out of jail by Disney. It just made me think, like, oh wow, like there's a whole system that not only is protecting pedophiles, but putting them in positions of power.
Well, I mean, again, it's like it's insulated by this sort of protected group of industry that you can't even put a name to, right?
And it's also like,
Or a face to.
I really do believe that this does not just apply. This is rampant in Hollywood because you have really high positions of power, and you have a lot of like
Yeah, you have
young
the most
people
vulnerable people on the
who
planet.
really want to succeed in a career that seems impossible.
Yeah, of course. And
So I think it's really prevalent in Hollywood, but I have seen this throughout my life in like many industries.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, first of all, this happens in the church. I saw it growing up.
Yeah.
And then I also think that, you know,
I mean,
I feel like I've seen it happen in schools where like someone will be outed as a rapist or a predator, and you see people in positions of power almost like favoring them because of it, or
Well,
like protecting them in a weird way. Like it's just mind-blowing to me.
well, you know, you have a system, and then you have people when they're put in positions of power, regardless of the avenue of abuse, 9 times out of 10, like, people abuse whatever position of power they're given. Obviously, that sort of leads into different paths. It's pretty crazy, but particularly I think in Hollywood, there's no, and there never is, a system of change, because it's sort of like an invite only to join the club to begin with. You know,
Yeah.
like what I was saying before about the people who are paid $15 an hour, that is done intentionally because no one can work for $15 an hour and survive, right?
And
I mean, that's
people are
impossible.
working for free. Like in that documentary,
Right.
the
So
woman
who
was
can-
told to work 11 weeks for free.
Right. So the people who are able to work 11 weeks for free, and I'm not faulting anyone who are put in these positions. It's obviously like a top-down thing. But the only people who are able to do those things are people who are either supported by other parents, who have connections in the industry, who are, you know, probably in the scheme of the world, pretty privileged in the sense that they have the ability to live working for free like half the time or full time. And I'm sure that they ran through I'm not indicating that this is to anyone's fault. But what I'm saying is the only people who can survive, like bare minimum survive, is if you're in some kind of position of privilege. You know, the way that it's selected is they pick, quote unquote, like, you know, people with strong education backgrounds, you know, connections, etc. So that way it's insulated to a certain type, quote unquote, type of person, someone who is kind of entering a business saying you're going to be treated like shit and you got to work your way up. And there's never any system of change that could be introduced because it's just so sealed off to the rest of the public. Because I couldn't live I could not do that.
Yeah.
It would be impossible for most people to live.
do that.
So it's kind of like this weird invite only where you have to, put up with that vulnerability, and you're just susceptible to all of this shit happening to you. And then, you know, after being abused for X number of years, it just fucking goes on repeat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's a cycle, clearly. And it doesn't, even though like all this stuff is coming to light, it really doesn't feel like it's ending.
No.
I don't think it ever really will end. I think that's the sad thing about it.
I think, though, things have gotten better because they're being named, right? And
yes.
And they are like objectively,
and like thankful for the internet, honestly, because I don't think, like, you know, everyone kind of knew about Dan Schneider. Like,
I've heard about Dan Schneider since like 2017.
Yeah, but like
2016.
look at how long that took.
I know. It's crazy.
But that's the thing. Like, everyone knew about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There had always been. I remember seeing the like the Salmon Cat or like the Victorious, web series stuff, and people always like write in the comments how much like, oh, Dan loves his feet. Like, I remember these things.
And apparently he would like be on Twitter and like say like, okay, it's foot day on Nickelodeon, and kids would like send in pictures of their feet.
I think I might remember that, honestly.
It's insane. Also that like there was a filmed video of a 13-year-old Ariana Grande sucking her toes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that no one was like outraged by that?
Yeah.
What? That was like allowed to be.
Yeah, it's
That's
crazy.
not even subtle.
No, that's not subtle at all.
Like, the videos, I couldn't even look at the videos of her because it was so heartbreaking. It's like, how is that allowed?
Yeah. It's crazy.
And, with people like Drake Bell and Amanda Bynes, like, or even, I don't know. I feel like there's also like a real push in Hollywood for like people like Amanda Bynes to be looked at as completely insane and
yeah,
crazy.
and then you want to, as like the industry, you want to ice them the fuck out.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be a problem. So you want to, in the
Yes.
public eye, make them see completely irresponsible or crazy, because it kind of vindicates you as a business. And that's what people do in positions of power. It's like if you complain, they fucking fire you. Or like unions, when they try to unionize, they'll fucking bust them and shut down the whole plant. It's like, that's just what, people in positions of power are so shitty. That's why, like, I don't know what's in place like with SAG or these type of like acting unions and stuff, but hopefully that just encourages more kind of checks and balances. That, I don't know, it's all obviously always been a problem because it's been joked about since the beginning of time. I think I'm forgetting what studio, but there was like a head who literally would have a back room. There was like the audition room, and then there was a back room where it was just a bed. Well, that he would take the stars in.
Even the idea, and like, obviously this is like, we would do this for Unifieds. Like, I didn't even think this was a weird thing, but like, going to like audition in a hotel room.
Yeah. Would you audition in rooms?
I did it for one school, and it was very professional and fine. But like, I think that's not a big of a thing anymore. But I know like back in Hollywood, like in those days,
auditioning in hotel rooms, yeah.
Auditioning
sure.
like alone, your children in a hotel room with someone, like that
Right.
would freak me out. Like I don't think that there's.
I think as a how could you possibly be neglectful to like, I don't know. I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah, but like that was like common practice. You know what I mean? And I think that there probably must have, like, auditioning in a hotel room, you've heard of that so many times, it doesn't even seem like that weird. But when you're looking at it in this context, you're like, that's kind of, like, that's a blurred line.
Because let's say like it's me, right? And I have
Mm-hmm.
and I'm traveling to this place and I have a hotel room. As a person, I wouldn't even want, like a parent, the person who's auditioning, to have it in the back of their mind that there could be a potential avenue for abuse. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if it's like, even if that would never cross the auditioner's, like the casting person's mind or director's mind to do something nefarious, why would you want to hold an environment where that could even pose a potential liability?
I honestly feel like
It's
these
insane.
people are so pompous that they almost.
Yeah,
They like, clearly Dan Schneider wanted to show the world that he was a
literally
creep.
trying to he was
Like, he got off on the fact that
he could get away with putting that shit on there.
anything.
Right.
Anything. Like, it was, I think that's part of the excitement in a
Right.
very creepy way for
Yeah,
those people.
totally.
Is
It's
that
like,
they know that they can't get
I want to
punished or
demonstrate.
caught.
I want to demonstrate my power to like the world.
Yeah, and then they just keep getting rehired and rehired. And that guy that I mentioned before, Ballard, or that photographer guy, I think he was arrested like 5 or 6 times
That's insane.
for pedophilia, for
and just
distributing
what they were saying
porn.
before.
And they had to create a law for him, basically, to say
For him.
that
Dude,
that to
5
say
times.
that you cannot have children or have registered sex offenders hired on a child set.
Oh, finally. That's
But,
a saying.
like,
Good.
after 6 arrests. And look at that. And I think that was before.
That is pretty bad.
That was before Brian Peck.
If they have
And
to
he
make...
was rehired.
Right.
He was a registered sex offender, and he was rehired on The
Right.
Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
If they have to make a law because you keep doing a no-no, brother. That's crazy they made it for him. Yeah, I don't know, like, that documentary was really... There was also something really Nickelodeon about the way it was. Like, I don't know, when I would watch Nickelodeon as a kid, after I'd watch it for like an hour or two, I'd feel kind of gooey.
I hated
I'd feel like
Nickelodeon
I
as a
was
kid.
getting slimed.
It made me feel so icky as a kid. I don't know why, but I didn't watch Nickelodeon. And now looking back at those things, like watching it as an adult, I'm like, this is actually disgusting.
Yeah.
The way that they poured sugar into those kids' mouths,
That's
and that was real
crazy.
sugar, and then had them like
Yeah.
throwing up on, like they were doing abusive things on TV to children. It was not even hidden.
And like the whole foundation of like the whole sliming thing is just like kind of a big ejaculation joke, you know?
Clearly he put them in every single show.
So it's like building the foundation of your brand on that is kind of weird to me too. I don't know. Like, even as a kid, I remember like, oh, that's kind of weird. I don't know why that's weird, but that's weird.
Well, when they were showing some of the things, like when they what's her name, Spears, on Zoe 101.
Oh, Jamie Lynn Spears. Yeah.
Jamie Lynn Spears, when she like
right to the glue
popped
or something.
her glue or whatever, and it was all over her face.
Yeah, that's insane.
Like, and there was many instances of that.
Yeah,
of that
it's like
same shot.
They they loved that one, but I don't know, man.
Well, it was clearly pushing he clearly wanted people. It was a
he's
power
like,
trip.
I mean, it's like dog whistling, like just pedophilia, and then wanting the power to say, yeah, I can do this, and no one's gonna stop me. And like, yeah, he was exited from Nick, but he got like $8 million. There's no like him, like what?
And he was exited, but the statement that they released basically just said that it was an amicable decision to part ways.
Well, yeah, because they don't want to draw any ill attention towards themselves. And then it's like them. It's like Bryan Singer, David Geffen. Like, you just have all of these people who kind of slip under the surface. It's like Bohemian Rhapsody won Oscars that year.
But I don't even think it's slipping under the surface, Aaron. Like, I think it's like a system that is built on protecting these people. And I think every single person in high power in Hollywood, it's like, I don't know. I think I'm frustrated right now and I'm just rambling a little bit, but
yeah,
it's
very
upsetting. Clear that there are systems in place that are protecting these people and are destroying anyone who wants to stand up for themselves or say anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have to question, like, okay, so are all of these big stars who were once childhood stars, like, have they all been abused? And are they all not saying anything, or because...
Perhaps not all of them in, like, the way that we're thinking or in the worst case scenario, but I'm sure in some form or another, without a doubt, okay? I mean, there's no question in my mind.
Just
that there has been some form of it, even if it's just like being overworked, or it's like obviously they're put in environments where they have easy access to alcohol and drugs and kind of being conditioned to party. In Victorious, apparently like most of the cast would be drunk the whole time they were shooting. It's like a well-known like cast lore of that show, because it was just so horrible. I mean, you have these videos of Dan Schneider would film a lot like on set, just like this camcorder or whatever, and you would see them all like visibly getting so uncomfortable when he would go up to them. Like, there's one where the person who played like Jade and then Ariana Grande, it's like they're joking on the floor, and then Ariana doesn't see that Dan has the camera, and then Jade like sees that he's there, and she like taps him, and then she kind of like shuts up, and then they like all get like visibly so like the room completely changes. Like you just can't imagine what must have been going on set in public in front of people than in closed doors when people are alone with these absolute insane people. Yeah, I don't know what has to happen. It's just so hard when it's so pervasive in what seems to be just industry
I
standard.
think about it and I'm like, would it change if someone like, I don't know, like a Leonardo DiCaprio spoke out about it, someone that A-list, but I honestly don't think it
so.
would.
No.
I think that they would just create another smear campaign on someone like that.
Yeah, it's like I and it's a problem. I do think, every time there's something like this, or the Michael Jackson documentary that came out, or like Me Too itself, I think that these are all like important steps. Unfortunately,
But it's like, okay, the Michael Jackson documentary came out, and now there's like a musical on Broadway
Right.
dedicated to him, and we are still like worshiping Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Like nothing really changed after that documentary.
I think I think that there are people who are gonna defend people no matter what. I don't know. Michael gets a weird thing. There's just like a weird cult behind him. But on top of that, I think it did change some things. Because I think that might have been like the first huge documentary
That's
about
true.
kind of sexual abuse in that way. I mean, it was just so harrowing. And it was like a little after Me Too, but it was in that same kind of time frame. So I think that there are I mean for me I'm like so thankful that like for the majority like in-person casting is kind of done. Like I'm glad shit is mostly self-tape now.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine like beyond, sexual abuse or whatever, but just the kind of abuse of having to go to these casting places one after another bi-weekly, sitting in front of the same people all the time, and then walking in front of these people who you'd essentially do anything to impress or get a part or whatever. I don't know. It seems so icky to me.
It is icky because like listening to it, I'm thinking to myself of like me being aspiring to be an actress and like living in LA, and I think about like how badly I want approval and want to be liked, and I think about
and then there's someone who gives that to you.
Yeah.
And tells you you're great and
but
amazing.
It's also like when you are auditioning, your hope, and like I will base honestly a lot of the way I see myself and my talent on people's responses, whether it be casting directors, whether it be my friends, whether that's just how I am. And I think that's a terrible thing, but
no,
I can't even imagine if I was a child feeling the way I feel now as an adult and also wanting the warmth and guidance and love from an adult figure.
Yeah.
In these situations.
And then to be wanting an adult figure, because probably a large percentage of these kids don't have that from their own parents.
Yeah.
Clearly, if it's like I remember my dad telling me, like I was confused, I was like 13 or whatever, and my dad was telling me that my brother was in baseball and he was probably like 8 or 9. He was like young, and the coach said to my dad, "Oh," because my dad mentioned something about like working, so you'd have to bring him in late, and he was like, "Oh no, like I'll pick him up and I can drive him to and from practice." And my dad pulled my brother off the team. And he was like, 90% chance that was fine. I think as an adult, you should, like, that. He was like, that felt really weird to me, and I'm never taking a chance with the rest of my child's life. He asked, like, he was like, he didn't complain about the guy, but he moved him to a different team after.
Yeah.
Like, the next week.
Wow.
Because if there's a 1% chance, it's the rest of your kid's fucking life.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's like, I can't imagine being a parent and how scary that is. So the idea that some parents, like, have to know what's going on. And then, like,
I think that there are some parents who are really in denial.
And then, yeah, that must be it
and
too.
I think, honestly, Aaron, like, I think that I don't know. I think every parent has, like, a radar that they're aware of and protective of their child, but I do think that your parents
they were extra,
unfortunately, really special in that way.
They were really keen.
Like, I don't know I don't know if my parents would have done the
Anyone
same
who
thing.
who is volunteering to be alone with a kid. I'm not
I mean,
saying
they probably would have. They
100% of the
probably would have, but I
time.
feel like your parents were very
I think
strict
that,
about it. And I also think it's taught differently
yeah,
to
it's taught
young
differently.
girls. Like,
Sure.
I remember the first time I got to talk about, you know, pedophilia, I guess, in that way, was when
Yeah.
I was shopping for my first bikini.
Holy shit.
And it was
Oh
like, you
my
can't wear that.
God.
Like that sort of, and I think it was a protective, loving
Yeah, of course.
conversation, but that is the way that I think it was positioned to me.
Right.
So in that way, I think I have a complicated relationship with that. But I think because you were both boys also, it was very easy. Not easy, but
yeah, it was different.
It was a different conversation.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's just it's so crazy. And it like I'm glad these documentaries get made, but it is also weird to like see it in a way that's supposed to be made in an like this one felt like the Michael Jackson one was more of a documentary, I would say. This felt more like a commodity, like an entertainment, like almost like a true crime sort of thing, as opposed to like this is a documentary, like it just seemed very slime-ish, like the weird intercuts of things. Like it just gave very like true crime.
I understand what you're saying, like the dripping faucet and
yeah, like what? Like it almost gave a little like Lifetime.
I also feel like if you've known about Dan Schneider for a long time, I do think the documentary did a great job of portraying the abusive work environment.
Yeah.
I really do think it did a great job of that. But I think like there's so many alleged things about him that it didn't even cover that I was expecting it. It felt very dark watching it. I was expecting
a little more.
A little more about him.
I was expecting a little bit more of like a serious either allegation or condemnation that they had, because they had Drake, and I think that was a huge deal because he's never talked. No, it was unknown who that person was, so I think that was a big deal, and they focused on that, which I think was good. But I do wish they had a little bit more on Dan.
Well, it's also like, I wanted to read this because do you know the blind website Crazy Days and Nights?
Yeah.
By Anti-Lawyer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
So Amanda Bynes apparently like has a very openly close relationship to Anti-Lawyer and will sometimes submit blinds to him.
Got it.
And there's also like I think she's openly said it, and he has as well. But this is a blind that she a letter basically that she submitted to the website on March 27th, 2018.
Recent.
So he said, last night after the news broke about a certain producer, so I'm assuming it's Dan Schneider, but I don't know what news it was, in 2018. An actress all of you know who's the producer. An actress all of you know who knows the producer as well as anyone sent me this. This is what she said. Thank you for all of your ongoing support. I don't know how any of these men sleep at night. But if there's one thing that I do know is that what's done in the dark always comes to light. XOXO. Sorry, I thought it was clever. Unfortunately, I will obviously not be making any comment whatsoever for obvious reasons. And unfortunately, I feel as though the only way that legitimate stories can make the headlines regarding blank is if others publicly speak on his behavior. Blank was truly like a second father to me, but things changed. After the second incident, I don't know if I will ever be able to have children or have the family of my dreams. And people have been picking this scab for years. I just won't be the one who finally rips it off. And she had like a secret Twitter where she would tweet out things about people. And in her Twitter as well, apparently she would capitalize certain letters. And then it would be a message. And in this, she capitalized certain letters. And if you put the letters together, it says, Dan did it.
Holy.
Which sent fucking...
That is chills, bro.
Chills down my spine.
That's crazy. Yeah. Holy moly. I mean, hopefully, though, this does perhaps like push like a second wave, because what I will say is perhaps this documentary was made more for like the TikTok generation of people. It's probably accessible to a younger audience, probably people who are teenagers who I think honestly should be watching this, because they should know that this is pervasive in, I mean, really any industry, but just unfortunately stuff that people have to deal with. So maybe in that light I retract my Lifetime statement. But hopefully it encourages, more condemnation. But like Dan Schneider was just on like a podcast.
I saw that.
It's crazy. With like the smoothie guy from iCarly.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, there's so much talk about, combating child abuse and child trafficking, because I do think this is a form of child trafficking.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
In other countries, and there's a lot of celebrities that have organizations that talk about that.
Right. But they don't condemn
but
it in
then
their
it's
own
like,
place
look
of
at your
work.
own industry.
This
is happening right in front of our faces in America.
People joked about Harvey Weinstein at the Oscars and Golden Globes.
Yeah, but it's like,
start there.
I don't know. Yeah, start there.
Let's maybe start where we are, and
but I think it's a very,
for those people, and whatever, but it's just, yeah, there's just like such obvious gaping hypocrisy. And it's just,
I also think like anyone who's like a really high up on a children's show, I'm always like,
yeah, why do you want to go really into children's TV? Yeah. I don't know. That's not, all I'm saying is like, if you're a man doing it, that's weird.
And
that's
I also
all I'm
like,
saying.
I don't know what is better, like the way that like, Disney will sort of try to like hide it with this like innocent image that they have their stars portray.
Right.
Or like Nickelodeon, where it's like so in your face that this is happening and that there's like abuse happening on set.
Yeah.
I don't know. Honestly, the videos that like freaked me out the most were like those ones of the dares where they would like dunk the child's head into like,
yeah, God knows what,
like mud, and like have them covered in worms and swallowing scorpions.
I don't remember that show, but yeah, that's insane. I remember there were some weird ones on Nick, like the game shows and stuff were really weird.
Yeah.
But holy moly, yeah, that made me feel like grime. Yeah. I don't think I felt as grimy, not grimy, but like as like, since I saw, have you heard of the documentary, Dear Zachary?
No.
A letter to a son about his father?
No. What is it?
So it's probably like the instigator for like the modern day true crime genre. And it's like it's a good movie. It's just like really, I think it was like 2008.
Okay.
By this guy named Kurt Quene. I'm not pronouncing his last name right, but essentially it's this filmmaker, and he like made like little short films and stuff his whole life. He was always super interested in making movies, and he had his best friend. His name was Andrew Bagby. Since he would be like your Carrie or something, you know, like babies, photos of them as when they're like 5.
Yeah.
Best friends. And he gets a call one day saying Andrew's been murdered.
The best friend.
His best friend was killed. So, I mean, he's like in a state of shock. He kind of drops what he's doing, and what he wants to do is now make a movie to just remember him. So he just wants to interview the parents. He wants to interview anyone who's ever known Andrew, because also he was studying to be a doctor, and they set up like these. He wanted to raise money for like scholarship funds, like really just like a good cause. And he was killed by his ex-girlfriend, who was charged, and it was like a really horrible murder. Because he broke up with her. Because she was like it was just like really crazy. And like in the last meeting before she killed him, she said she was pregnant. But she actually then she said she wasn't, and he broke up with her, and then like the next day he was found dead. and she pretended like she was at home or something. So while they were waiting to like officially charge her and arrest her, she flees to Newfoundland in Canada. So they're kind of just he's in the process of making this movie, and then he gets a call that this woman, Shirley Turner, I think, was pregnant with Andrew's child, 4 months pregnant.
With which child?
With the ex's baby.
4 months?
Yeah, she was now 4 months pregnant.
Okay.
And
so after he died?
After he was killed. He didn't know.
Okay. So she was in fact pregnant.
So she was pregnant. Okay. And she has this press conference in Canada saying she's pregnant. So now the movie is kind of about this legal battle with the parents who want custody over this child because it's like the last
that they have
possible semblance of their only child. So now it's sort of this legal battle. They immediately move to Canada, and they're sort of in this weird position because she gets posted bail. So she's able to just kind of be free until she's extradited back to the United States. And they now need to have this sort of relationship with their son's killer because they want to see this child. So he's born, and she names him Zachary. So they have to like have a relationship with this woman who, for a fact, killed their child so that they could retain custody over the kid, because they had to now share custody. They had to talk to her on like a weekly basis. She gets pulled in and out of jail, and the movie becomes more of like a custody battle sort of thing. And then there's like a big twist at the end.
What's the twist?
Do you want to know?
I do. If you don't want to know the twist,
skip to the next time mark.
Say the name of the documentary and then reveal the twist.
The name of the documentary is Dear Zachary, A Letter to a Son About His Father. It's really great, but it's really upsetting. Okay. And the whole thing is really upsetting.
Now we're going to reveal the end.
Oh, so they're in this legal battle, and she's insane. I mean, it's documented. Like psychiatrists do these evaluations, and she's like insane. She's talking about just being crazy, and they're like recordings because the parents. I'm trying to remember the parents' name. It's Kate and Jack. They're like the bravest parents on planet Earth. That they are like alone with this woman who's killed their child, and like the amount of patience and level of like just. It's like you watch it and you're like, the only hope of humanity are like the fact that these two people are like still standing, because it's just like grueling. So then on the news, there's this call and you see Zachary the whole time. And the documentary filmmaker, he goes out to Newfoundland to meet Zachary, and he meets him, the baby boy, and I think he was like 1 at this point. He's really cute.
So he meets him with that woman there.
And at this point, the parents are able to take custody of him for a period of time, like for a week at a time, because she's in and out of jail. So they have like a relationship. So Zachary has like a really strong relationship with the parents. Like there's this scene where the mother has a birthday party for Zachary at McDonald's, and whenever the mother holds Zachary, he like doesn't want to be held by the mom. He only wants to be held by the grandparents. Like he obviously prefers them. Like in all videos when they're together, he'll go to the grandmother. The son, and you see like the mother holding Zachary, and it just seems really uncomfortable. So then there gets to be like a story on the news that Zachary and Shirley have gone missing. And like a big search comes up, and it turns out she strapped him to her chest and she jumped into the ocean.
Are you serious?
Yes. And it was like right before she's about to get extradited back to the United States, and the grandparents are going to keep Zachary essentially.
They lost 2 Zacharys.
It's like the most awful, like and it's like a twist at the end, and like your heart just sinks.
Oh, my heart just sank fully.
It's horrible.
That's
And it's from the perspective
awful.
of this man who's like making this film about his best friend. And all of this is happening in real time too. And like when that happened, he stopped making the movie for a few years. But he realized he had to because
What happened to the parents? Are they okay?
they're like the bravest people on the planet.
Do they have they don't have another child other than Zachary? Was he their only kid?
His name was Andrew, but
Oh.
no, that was his only. That was their only child. And they're in the documentary a lot, and it's just like they are like quite honestly probably the strongest people on the planet because they kind of worked with the filmmaker because they knew him since he was a boy on trying to push some type of reform in Canada that if you're a convicted like murderer for in instance and like there are children at home that it's up to the judge to deal with like custody and bail because if she was not given bail Zachary wouldn't have died. And I think they got a law passed in Canada and they call it the Zachary law or something.
Oh my god.
It's just like so heartbreaking though.
What made you think of this?
I was thinking about like the true crime stuff and like how I kind of felt watching this documentary. But that documentary, I've never felt anything crazy like that before.
I don't think I could ever watch that.
No.
Like I feel like I'm not gonna be able to sleep at night
I
just hearing
was
your
like
story.
sobbing, crying when you watch it because you also see the parents.
No, I can't.
And like everything is taken from them in the first 10 minutes and then it's like it just keeps and then like imagine getting a call that this woman who killed your son is now pregnant with their baby, you know? And then for it's all it's so upsetting. You just get so angry too.
Yeah.
Cuz she's in the documentary as well, the mother.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I will never watch that documentary because I would be.
I wouldn't encourage anyone, which is why I'm okay spoiling it. I think they post like a memoir or something like maybe you could donate to them, but it's like so upsetting. It's so upsetting.
Yeah, I felt like I couldn't even watch the documentary we watched yesterday.
Yeah, but the framework, I will say, it really celebrates Andrew. Because you see like he was just like a really bright, honest person, and it's more what I usually don't like the crime stuff.
Yeah, I understand.
But it's framed entirely to show like the strength of these parents and just the fact that they're alive, like that they have like a human spirit. Like at all the film festivals, the parents went to every single one. They would talk after. There's this one, it made me cry, but it's like when it's first being premiered in Canada, everyone's obviously standing and like sobbing because it's so heartbreaking. And the parents are there and they come to the front and like they're all hugging and crying. And then he says, everyone who ever knew Andrew stand. And it was like everyone he went to school with, like so many people came. It's like, and I will say the one thing, it's like the most tragic thing that I think could happen to a parent. I think that's probably the most tragic thing.
Yeah, that is the most tragic thing.
There's nothing like that. The sequence of events is probably the worst thing that could happen to a parent. And what I will say is there was still this framework that's not present in the story itself, but present, I think, in the movie and just probably what actually happened, that there is this, I think, air of hopefulness and strength that I think human beings are conditioned to live with, and you see their strength. And, the documentary filmmaker was like, we would get hundreds of people who would say, I was watching this and I was, losing hope in my own life. But I saw that the worst tragedies, there's still people who can find strength.
Yeah.
And you remind yourself of that when you watch it. I mean, it's really anchoring, but you see that and Yeah.
Well, it definitely puts into perspective your own life
Yeah.
and how. I mean, right now I just went through my own life and I was like, wow, I'm so blessed and I have nothing to complain about.
Yeah.
Because you hear about like.
And these are like, you see these parents, they seem like the nicest people, like the best people on the planet.
Yeah. It is like.
They
I
did
don't
not,
know.
no one deserves that, but like, they remind me of like my own parents, you know? It's just like, you feel so, oh my God, so heartbreaking. But they're just so strong and such, you know, yeah.
Wow.
What
Feel a
an
little heavy.
emotional roller coaster.
Yeah. No, you guys should watch the All Quiet on Set documentary though.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. I think that, you know, as dark as it feels and as hopeless as it feels to like research these people and know their names and publicly speak out against them is a really important thing. And I just think that it's been hidden for, well, I don't think hidden. I think it's just been quietly accepted for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that freaks me out and makes me feel hopeless. But when I see documentaries like this, or, you know, people who dedicate their lives to like making podcasts or like, you know, doing investigative research on things like this and really bringing to light all of these stories, I think that that's hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that there is hope, you know, and to feel so lost, and it's like really upsetting and really horrible, and it's easy to feel lost and hopeless, but I think, you know, things in the long run do get better, and I think that there's always like, you can always find the strength of the people who are maybe even being directly affected, who like had to be strong because they were forced into that position. And I also want to say their names are Kate and David Bagby.
Okay.
They're That's them. They're so cute.
They're adorable.
Yeah. Anyway, so want to say that. Wow, I did not expect to have more of a heavy podcast this time around. But
I did.
Okay, there you go.
Right? We just watched a documentary about
That's true.
pedophilia
That's true.
and abuse
Yeah,
in the children's network that we used to watch as kids.
fair enough.
So I expected it to not be on the lighter, joyous side.
Fair enough.
But yeah.
But here we are.
Anyway.
But this was you know, this was a good one. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you again next week.
Yes, we will. Sorry if you listened to this like when you were in a happy mood, but hopefully
And
you're
are
like
not.
walking in outside and getting some sort of endorphins.
Yeah.
Not driving to work or anything.
Yeah, not one to start your day.
Not in the middle of traffic.
Yeah. Okay. Well, have a good one, you guys.
FIFA for fun, bitches.